Hello. We're going live again, apparently. Hello. There we are. So, part 6, I think we're on, of the bucket, which is odd because it's chapter 7. We've got out of sync there a bit somehow. No worries. I've been asked by some other people to show you the pen trick again. So something when I go into schools that I do, and it's a little oddity of the mind that can't seem to see how this is done. But let's see if you can do it. So you get a pen, and you start off by putting your hands like this, like you're praying, but really not. And then you just pop the pen underneath like that. It's very easy. I'll tell you what, I'll come back here so you can see it a bit better. So you take the pen between thumbs and fingers like this, and you just pop it underneath like that. Okay? Get yourself a pen. Here's a trick. Oh, you can go the other way as well. That way. And all the way around, funnily enough. Okay, so there we go. There's the pen trick. Leave a comment if you can do it. If you can, I'd love to hear from you. If you can't, keep practicing. It's easy. Okay. Now, I'm going to have to leave us for a second because the dog wants to go into the garden. Holly, actually, let's try that. Actually, bed. Do you think you can hold it for a bit? I'm going to wander around and bark at things anyway. Okay. So, yeah, there she is. Look. Okay. Here's a weird thing: is dogs are always guilty. Always guilty. And all you have to do is say, "What have you done?" See? Now go this. What have you done? See? And they know they've done something, but they're quite sure what it is. Good girl. Oh, she's looking at one of our cats now. We've got 4 cats as well. Right, so I have to let the cat out. We've got a cat flap, but this particular cat is too fat to get through it. Right, go on. There you go. Fabulous. Okay. So, we're on to chapter 7. Crikey, O'Reilly. By the way, if you do like these stories, do feel free to share. Today's a non-shavy day. We're at home with the kids. Everybody's at home with the kids, or at home, you know. Right, so where were we? What were we doing last time? All right, they've just been with Fling. They've just been slowed down by time. Because Fling has his own sort of bubble of time. The banana plant. You have to discover that a banana plant is a plant and not a tree. I've called it a tree several times, but it's not a tree. It's a plant. What can you do? Okay, so now they're heading off towards the creek, where they hope to find some answers. Rachel struck a good walking pace. She knew the brownies that to run would be silly, as they would run out of breath quite quickly. But a good steady fast walk would help them cover more ground more quickly. After 10 minutes of walking together in thoughtful silence, Robin noticed that the grass seemed to be longer. In fact, it was nearly waist high. He stopped and said, "Are you sure we're going the right way, Rach? This grass is getting well difficult to walk through. Maybe we should go in a different direction." Rachel lifted her eyes to the sky and then looked at Robin directly in the eye. Why? Why could you not have been a girl? A girl wouldn't be whinging like you do. A girl wouldn't be helping me and asking me how I feel about things. A girl would be excited and trying to find her lost father. A girl would just want to get on with it. Robin was astonished at Rachel's outpouring. What did I do? Rachel sighed heavily. Sat down in the grass. Nothing, Robin. You did nothing, just like you always do. Nothing. Robin was utterly confused. I was just saying, that's all. There might be an easier way somewhere. Rachel stood up, even angrier than before. Well, there isn't, is there? We've just got to keep doing and keep going until we find someone or something, or... The conversation was cut short by the sound of a low growling. Robin said, "Did you hear that?" Rachel shoved him and looked around. Something not far away, was moving through the grass close to them. It seemed to be stalking them. They both looked around, and Rachel whispered to Robin, "Keep very still and be very quiet. It might just pass us by." Robin didn't have to be told, but still couldn't help saying, "You said that before, and look what happened." The low, growling sound sounded like it was coming from something very dangerous close by. They both slowly began to crouch down, hoping not to be noticed by whatever was out there. Robin whispered over to Rachel, "Hey, Rach, stand up slowly and take a look around. See if you can see anything." Rachel looked at Robin for a moment in disbelief. "Okay, Hercules," she said in a loud whisper. "I'll just put my life in danger for you, shall I? You're the older one. You take a look." Robin had had enough of Rachel's taunts. "Okay, then, I will. You think that you're really clever, don't you? And so much better than anyone else." He began to raise his voice. "Oh, I'm Rachel Jameson. I don't need any help from anyone because I'm so clever. I know everything." And he was cut off mid-sentence by a huge black cat-like creature leapt out of the grass and pinned him to the ground. Rachel jumped back at the sight of this huge, evil-looking beast, 3 times the size of a leopard, but black scales instead of fur, and immensely powerful-looking. It was long and sleek, and its eyes bored into Robin as he lay helpless under the weight of the armored paw pressing down on his chest. Robin looked back at the beast that was breathing heavily as its hot breath took his own away. It curled his lips, exposing a fearsome set of teeth. Robin looked over to Rachel, who stood petrified to the spot. Robin just managed to pant out, "Help." The beast turned its head slowly and looked at Rachel. Rachel looked at the terrifying beast. Nothing moved for a brief moment. She couldn't think of how to help Robin. Nothing had prepared her for this. This creature looked like pure evil, and Rachel panicked. A slight breeze rustled through the grass, and Rachel turned on her heel and ran. Then Robin heard a voice in his head. "Aha!" it said, looking down at the helpless boy under his paw. "You're it!" And with that, the beast leapt off him and chased after Rachel. It only took a couple of seconds for the beast to catch up with her, but it stayed behind her. Robin stood up, trying to catch his breath, and then ran after the beast. Rachel ran as fast as she could, desperately thinking of how to escape this evil creature, and then she heard the beast in her mind. "Run to the creek quickly. He's it." Rachel's mind was spinning. "What creek? Who's what?" she shouted out loud. The beast was gaining on her. "He won't catch up with us if we jump over the electric daisy patch." Rachel was really confused now, but kept running out of fear and instinct. They had been attacked by the scariest looking thing she'd ever seen, and was now trying to save her from Robin, who was absolutely useless and no threat at all. "What electric daisy patch?" she shouted. The beast was nearly upon her. She heard its voice in her head again as she ran out of the long grass into the open plain. The beast leapt, and it hit her on the side of the body, knocking her sideways. "That patch," he said. She heard it say, and as she fell to the ground, she saw the creature leap over the patch of yellow and black-headed daisy-type plants. As she came to a stop, she noticed a blue light that seemed to crackle between the heads of the flowers. Rachel heard Robin shouting her name, and he burst out of the long grass and ran straight into the daisy patch. As his feet hit them, he felt a strong jolt of electricity surge through his body, which blew him into the air. The patch was not very big, and as he landed back in it, he made some very odd noises whilst tumbling through it out to the other side, then fell to the ground, twitching, barely conscious. Rachel watched as the beast turned and leapt towards Robin, landing right next to him. It put its snout down close to Robin's face, sniffed, and looked at Rachel, and in her mind, she heard its voice again. "You didn't leap over the daisies. What a twit! He's been zapped. Never mind, he'll be okay in a moment. How do you fancy a game of jump next? He's obviously a bit rubbish at playing it, isn't he? The beast looked at Robin again. What kind of an idiot runs into a patch of electric daisies? Rachel walked curiously over to Robin and the beast. She was beginning to make some sort of sense out of what had just happened, and spoke to the beast aloud. You're not trying to kill us, are you? Why would I want to kill you? It said, somewhat surprised by the question. Robin was beginning to come round, and as he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the fearsome creature leaning over him. Don't eat me! He screamed. The beast leapt backwards and crouched down, ready for an attack. What? He shouted in both their minds. Who's going to eat you? He was scrabbling backwards to get away from the creature. Rachel shouted at him, Robin, stop! But it was too late. Robin backed off straight into the daisy patch and felt the jolt of electricity surge through him again. The force of the jolt flung him forwards to the feet of the beast. He lay on the ground, twitching as he had for the first time. The beast looked at Rachel and cocked its head. What did he do that for? Does he like getting zapped? Rachel could hear the beast was genuinely confused by Robin. A grin started spreading across Rachel's face as she asked, You're not trying to hurt us, are you? The beast was flummoxed. Hurt? No, I'm the Jasban. I just wanted to play it with you. Why would I want to hurt you? Rachel laughed out loud in utter relief. Sorry, but you look really scary to us. I've never seen anything like you before. The Jasban looked at Rachel with his head cocked to one side. Scary? Me? Oh, you should meet my brother. He's really scary. And as Robin started coming round again, another Jasban leapt out of the grass, landing next to the first. Wow! Two-legged things, it said in their minds. It looked just as fearsome as the first and slightly bigger. Do you want to play jump? Do they want to play jump? They asked the first, who said to Rachel, This is my brother. Then it looked at Robin, who opened his eyes and froze in terror. What's wrong with that one? Asked the second Jasban. The first began to laugh. Electric daisy buzz. And they think we look scary. The second beast leant down to Robin, who was now utterly petrified. Are you nuts? Those things can kill. Robin didn't know what to say. He looked at Rachel, wide-eyed. It's okay, she said. They don't mean us any harm. They just look a bit scary, I think. Robin remained unconvinced and stared at the creatures towering above him. Then looked over to Rachel. Yeah? Then why did that one over there attack me? His voice sounded squeaky, and his teeth felt weird. The first Jasban looked at his brother and said defensively, I didn't do anything. I just tagged him. It's not my fault he's an idiot who doesn't know how to play tag. Come on, kid, he said a little apologetically. It's difficult to say. There's games to play while it's still light. Rachel stepped forward and asked, Do you know of others like us? The first leapt over to her side and sat down. Yeah, loads. Can we play jump now? You do know how to play jump, don't you? You must know how to play jump, surely. Rachel looked at Robin, who was unsteadily getting to his feet and shaking his head. Sorry, no, she said. We're new here. We're looking for someone, and we're in a bit of a hurry, I think. Robin, are you okay? Robin started walking over to Rachel, but his legs felt like jelly, and he began to sink down. The second Jasban flicked out a steely claw and caught Robin by the jacket. Steady, boy. You had a shock. Both Jasban looked at each other, then laughed out loud, which sounded a bit like a crow being slowly drowned whilst warbling. Robin regained his balance. What are those things? He said, looking back at the patch of flowers. A Jasban slowly retracted his claw as Robin regained his balance. Those are electric daisies. Very strong when they're flowering. You should be more careful. He turned to Rachel. The humans live over that way somewhere, over the other side of the creek. He gestured with his head. The first Jasban jumped straight up in the air and down on his front paws again. They've got to play jump. If they're in a hurry, they've got to play jump. They can't get over the creek. It would take days. Robin steadied himself and walked slowly to stand beside Rachel, then whispered, What's going on, Rach? What are they talking about? Rachel sat down. Robin followed suit. I think they're going to help us. Remember, Brian said, find the Jasban. I think these are the Jasban he was talking about. She turned to the Jasban. My name is Rachel, and this is Robin. May I ask what your names are? The first Jasban jumped around in a circle, and Robin and Rachel both moved quickly backwards for fear of being trodden on. Yeah, of course. I'm the Jasban, and he's the Jasban. Now we'd better go to the creek. The bobberdon will be rising to feed. The second Jasban jumped over to them. Climb on, then. Robin looked at the beasts in front of him. He looked at Rachel, and then back at the beasts. Why? He asked. The first Jasban looked at the second and said, You take the idiot, I'll take the girl. The second looked at Robin up and down. Why do I get the idiot? The first moved closer to Rachel. Because you're better with the simple-minded ones. You know you are. Rachel was beginning to really like these two creatures and started to climb onto the back of the first. Will you help us over the creek? She asked, not entirely sure what the creek was. The second Jasban sighed. Yeah, of course, it's what we do for fun. Oh, all right then, I'll take the idiot. Come on, idiot, climb on up. Robin was outraged. I am not an idiot, and I'm not climbing onto anything. The first Jasban felt Rachel make herself comfortable on his back. Blimey, you're very light. Hold on around my neck, but don't touch the ears, okay? Rachel had thought they were black scales. Actually, they felt soft and furry. Hard, yes, but soft and furry nonetheless. Okay, she said, and looked down at Robin. Come on, Robin, they're only joking. They seem really friendly. Robin stood his ground. No, we'll not, he said churlishly. They keep calling me an idiot. The second bent down to Robin and looked him in the eye. You want to cross the creek, don't you? Or should we leave you here in the open as meat for the dragons? They like the taste of two-legged ones, I hear, he said in a fairly intimidating voice. Robin swallowed, high in the face of this huge, impossible creature. Yes, I mean, no, he said, suddenly unsure of his previous bravado. Then climb on and hold tight, he growled, low and deep. Robin nearly flew up onto his back in a single leap. Okay then, he said, with heart in his mouth. There, said the first. Told you were good with the idiots. The second laughed, and so did Rachel. Robin scowled, but made himself as comfortable as he could. The Jasban turned to Robin and smiled. Only kidding, kid. Right then, let's go play jump. The Jasban both turned and crouched, then leapt forward and ran. Rachel and Robin clung on for their lives, tucking themselves down behind the heads of the beasts as they raced across the open plain at an incredible speed. They ran swift and fast for a good 5 minutes. Robin was still feeling weak from the shock of the daisies, but managed to cling on simply by sheer will and the desire not to die if he fell off at that speed. Eventually, they slowed and came to a stop at the edge of the creek. Rachel looked at what the Jasban had called a creek. This was not what she was expecting. It was a vast gap in the land, more of a canyon than a creek, more of a chasm than a creek. It stretched for miles in each direction. The Jasban loped over towards the edge. Rachel and Robin looked down, then across. The other side of the creek was at least a couple of 100 meters away, possibly miles. They couldn't tell. It was fuzzy. And they couldn't see the bottom of it because of the carpet of insects that were swarming down the chasm from both sides and both directions and as far as they could see. The insects seemed to be slowly rising up and were nearly level with them. The buzzing was becoming painfully loud. Robin looked over to them, to the other side of the chasm, and a horrible thought occurred to him. He shouted above the noise to the Jasban he was on, You are not seriously going to jump from here to the other side, are you? It ain't possible, surely. The Jasban replied, Yeah, of course, we've got wings, haven't we? Robin was astounded. Wings? Really? He said, looking down on either side of the Jasban. They, in turn, laughed in his head. Don't be a numbnut, of course not. Watch the bugs! Something big began to emerge through the floating carpet of insects. Robin watched in fascination as the head of a creature easily the size of a bus slowly appeared and opened its vast mouth. Neither he nor Rachel had ever seen anything like this before. Its head was flat on top. It had one small eye in the side of it and a very small ear. Its skin was mottled green and blue that sparkled in the sunlight above. The enormous head moved forward and sucked insects into its mammoth mouth and then began to sink again. Rachel's jazz band shouted into her mind, "Here we go! Hold on tight!" It circled round and ran forward in a wide circle to pick up speed, then leapt from the side of the chasm directly onto the flat surface of the beast's head. Rachel screamed as her jazz band, the badge ran. Rachel screamed as her stomach felt like it had turned upside down when the jazz band had lurched forward to jump. The beast's head lowered below this buzzing carpet of insects. Robin sat on his jazz band, staring out in horror as Rachel disappeared from view beneath the cloud of insects. He shouted down to his jazz band, "Hey, there's a bridge or something. Surely there's a bridge somewhere." Another Bobodon's head began to rise and repeated the same insect-eating routine as the first. Robin's jazz band shouted out in his mind, "Grip on hard, kid." And then it leapt into the air. Robin gripped on and stopped breathing. They arced through the air, landing on the Bobodon's head, and the jazz band gripped down hard with his claws. It shouted, "Look down, kid, and keep your mouth closed." The head of the Bobodon started to descend through the cloud of insects. Robin closed his eyes as well as his mouth. This is what the jazz band looked like. They're probably bigger than that in reality, actually. Rachel was the first to see the canyon they were in as the Bobodon sank down. Even though the insects were blocking out most of the sunlight, she could still see the amazing scene below her. Sunlight broke through the swarm above her in places that provided just enough light to see it all. The canyon stretched in either direction for miles, and it seemed like a world beneath the world under a sky of buzzing insects. The canyon appeared wider than above. The rocks on either side sparkled with reflected light in a rainbow of colors, and as she looked down, she could see that the Bobodon she and the jazz band were on was immense. Its neck was a good 20 meters long, and its body seemed unfathomably large and tubular. Half of it was hidden below the water. The gigantic animal was standing in a river that shone yellow and green, running along the canyon's length. Small silver birds flew around her in flocks, and she could see other impossible-looking creatures resting on the shores of the river. As she looked around, she could see that there were 7 or 8 Bobodon raising their heads to suck in the insects above. Waterfalls fell sparkling from the sides of the rocky walls, and Rachel just tingled with excitement and laughed out loud, exclaiming, "Wow, this is just beautiful." The jazz band turned itself around. "First time here, then, Two Legs," it said, looking up to see the Bobodon that Robin was on, sinking below the clouds of insects. Robin felt his stomach turn over and feared that it might drop out of his bottom. Thankfully, due to his football training, he had a good clench, and it didn't. He had opened his eyes briefly and looked down. When he did, it simply looked at the distance between him and the river below, thinking, "If I fall off this, I'm going to die," and then closed his eyes again and screamed, "Oh, God!" He was still screaming as the Bobodon's head came level with Rachel's, who shouted over to him, "Oh, Robin, isn't this just wonderful?" Her heart pounded in her chest with excitement and joy. Robin heard her, stopped screaming, and shouted, "You're insane! We're going to die!" He closed his eyes and gripped onto his jazz band. Then Rachel briefly thought out of her friends back home and wondered if any of them, or any other child of her age, would ever see such an incredible sight. She felt just privileged and lucky beyond words. Robin opened his eyes and looked down and felt nauseous. "I think I'm going to be sick," he said, clinging on to the Jasban for grim death. Rachel's Jasban looked over the other Bobodons rising to feed from the insects and then shouted out in all of their minds, "Okay, kids, hang on. Tight, time to play. Jump!" Rachel gripped hard as she felt the muscles of the Jasban tighten beneath her, and then it jumped. Its body stretched out as it sailed through the air and gracefully landed on a rising Bobodon's head. The Bobodon seemed not to notice and continued rising into the cloud of insects. It took a huge gulp from the air and then slowly began to descend again. Robin's Jasban laughed and shouted out loud, "Here we go, and if you're on sick on me, I'll throw you off. Hope that helps. Now hold on, kid. Here we go." The second Jasban followed the path of the first, landed on a rising Bobodon. When he landed, Robin slid off and threw up on the Bobodon's head. The second Jasban just laughed. "Well done, kid. You're learning. Now climb back on. We don't have much time." As Robin tried to recover himself and climb back on the Jasban, the rising Bobodon reached the cloud of insects, and Robin accidentally opened his mouth and nearly swallowing a whole mouth of them. He spat furiously and then shouted out, "Please stop, just stop, just for a minute, please stop." His Jasban stopped moving as the head of the Bobodon descended. "Take a moment, kid, take a breath." Robin did so and pressed his head into the Jasban's solid fur. He panted for a few moments before his Jasban cat shouted out, "Here we go, kid, only one more to go. Climb on quick." Robin did so, and then the Jasban leapt into the air. Rachel was beside herself with joy as her Jasban leapt from the Bobodon's head to Bobodon's head, and as they rose and fell, and then felt the Jasban hit solid ground again, and the sunlight warmed her face as they jumped for the last time. She was back in the meadow, but on the other side of the creek. Her Jasban circled and jumped around, roaring with pleasure as she clung on, laughing. "Stop now, Jasban, please," she cried out at last. "Where's Robin?" The Esmeralda stood at the bottom of the canyon. She had been picking poisonous herbs on one of the shores with her dwarf slave, Dargle, when she felt the Jasban arrive. As she looked up, her black eyes had seen the beast jumping from Bobodon to Bobodon. "So, now it begins. The sister arrives," she said to herself. She put her hand into the air and clicked her fingers. A loud crack filled the air as she did this, and the Bobodon that Robin's Jasban was leaping to turned its head out of the Jasban's flight path and tilted to the side. The Jasban and Robin began to fall, having missed their target. Robin gripped on, not knowing what was happening, and yet a feeling of blackness filled his heart that he could not explain. It was a feeling of sadness and rage that filled him from top to toe, coming up from the ground from the Esmeralda. His Jasban was clever and quick in his reflexes. Instead of plummeting down to the canyon floor, he twisted in midair and hit the neck of the Bobodon, sinking his claws in. The Bobodon screamed out in pain and began to sink. "New target, kid!" the Jasban shouted and leapt from the neck of the Bobodon to the side of the cliff face. As it hit the cliff, it scrambled to take hold, falling down the cliff side, but then managed to grip on a cluster of falling vine leaves. Robin felt gravity pulling at him, and he needed all of the strength in his arms and legs to hold on to the Jasban. The Esmeralda smiled as it watched the Jasban slowly crawl up the vine to the top of the cliff. She looked down at Dargle. "About 1 year to go now, Dargle, and then we can begin. Then the fools will find the room." Dargle bowed to his mistress. I am yours to command, mistress. Both Rachel and her Jasban were becoming just a little worried as they waited in the meadow, when eventually they saw the paws of Robin and Jasban gripping the earth of the edge of the cliff face, and as they managed to emerge from the chasm, Rachel's Jasban leapt over to his brother. She's here, isn't she? She said. I heard the crack. The second Jasban crawled over the edge and fell to the ground as Robin slid off him. Yeah. Oh, the witch is here. We'll have to wait here until she's gone to get back, he said, panting. The first looked at Rachel. You kids had better go. Whew, the Esmeralda hates two legs. Might not be safe for you here. Rachel became concerned. What's the Esmeralda? What about you two? She said gravely. Robin's Jasban was regaining his breath somewhat. She's a bad creature. She lives to cause pain, but she has her limits. We just have to wait until she's gone. But you two, you should leave. Robin put his hand on the Jasban's shoulder, and even though he was feeling queasy, he managed to say, Thanks for your help, Jasban. I think I'm going to be sick again. Then he fell to his knees and threw up. Rachel went to his side as Robin finished his vomiting and knelt up. We better go. Are you okay, Robin? She said. Having thrown up all he could, Robin just looked up at her and laughed. Oh, yeah, just cock a hoop. She turned back to her Jasban and walked over to him. Thank you so much, Jasban. That was the most wonderful game of jump I have ever played. And then she hugged his neck. The Jasban crouched down and purred. Best you get gone. If you're in a hurry, we'll be fine. Rachel walked back to Robin and helped him up. She turned back to the two scary-looking beasts and said, Thank you, Jasban. I really hope we meet again. Her Jasban laughed. Me too, kid. You know how to enjoy a good ride, that's for sure. Then Robin and Rachel began to continue their journey across the meadow. As they went, Robin looked back at the two resting Jasban. Well, that was weird and bloody painful. As they walked, he began to feel a little steadier on his feet. Oh, hey, Rach. He said, that apple in your pocket. I'm sort of hungry now. Rachel ignored him. Oh, come on, Rach. I nearly died back there. Just a nibble, eh? Rachel just looked ahead. No, Robin persisted. My stomach really needs filling. Rachel carried on walking resolutely. Not listening, she said. Robin pleaded, please. Rachel was secretly enjoying herself. No, she said, smiling to herself. And that, tonight, is where we hit Chapter 8. Chapter 8. So, I hope you're enjoying this. Do please share if you are. There's a whole series of me reading these all the way up to this point, obviously on the YouTube channel. And you can get the books on Amazon. The great audiobooks are on Amazon as well. I've written another 3 books. The sequel is called The Bag. That's already out now. And there's The Box, which is coming soon. But we'll hope to get that out as quick as we can. And now I'm writing, if you're interested, a whole set of new books based on Grimm's fairy tales. And the first one I'm writing is going to be called The Goose Girl. And it's slightly dark and a bit scary about a princess and her maid who have a bit of a conflict. It's a bit nasty, and it's a bit dystopian in places. However, I'm putting a newsletter together as well, so I might do a few scenes for that, just a taster, if you sign up to that. The website is www.djcattrellauthor.com, and we're just having the website rejigged, so it'll be ready in a couple of weeks. And then the newsletter will be coming out. And if you're interested, do subscribe to that. Get your friends to subscribe to this, because kids love a good story. Okay, have a lovely evening. Stay safe. Keep home. What can we tell you? Okay, so this is the end of stream thing. Here we go. End of stream. End stream. Bye. Bye.